brooding heat of Presidio's waning daylight, where the cracked earth met the horizon in silence, the truth, buried for over a decade, was about to claw its way to the surface. Inside the station's cramped office, Detective Simon Reyes sat hunched beneath the buzz of old fluorescent lights, the sharp scent of aging paper mingling with the dusty air, his brow furrowed over a missing persons report. Another teenage girl, gone without a trace. It had been 3 days, and in Presidio, 3 days often meant forever. Lost in thought, Simon didn't hear the pounding footsteps in the hallway until Officer Martinez burst in, breathless, his uniform soaked despite the hum of air conditioning. "Detective," he gasped. "Park ranger up in the Chinachas just radioed. Hikers found a body, in a uniform." Simon's heart stopped. "Another girl?" "No, sir. A cop. They think it's been there a long time, found in an old mountain outhouse." The detective stood so fast his chair shrieked across the floor. Something old and unfinished stirred inside him. A memory with jagged edges. "Get me the 1985 case file, Holbrook and Ortega. That's the only missing officers we've got. This could be it." Martinez's eyes widened. Everyone in that department had grown up on whispered stories of Sheriff Ray Holbrook and Deputy Laya Ortega, who had vanished into the desert like ghosts. He bolted down the hallway. Simon shrugged on his jacket, heart thudding. The air in the station had changed, buzzing, urgent. Officers moved with uncommon purpose. Near the armory, he spotted Detective Kara Dupont. "Kara," he called, "we've got a body in the mountains. Could be connected to the Holbrook-Ortega case. I need you." The seasoned detective nodded, already reaching for her gear without a word. She'd known Leia. Most of them had. 2 female deputies, Carr and Moreau, were loading equipment nearby. Simon paused, his voice low. "You're both coming." Deputy Debbie Carr, a sturdy woman with steady eyes, looked up in surprise. Her younger colleague, Trish Morrow, tightened her ponytail, glancing at Debbie. There was something unspoken in their silence, a flicker of dread. Simon remembered why. 16 years ago, just after the disappearance, these 2, then rookie officers, had come forward, quietly, hesitantly. They'd accused Holbrook of harassment, of cultivating fear, of driving Laya Ortega into isolation. They'd kept their mouths shut until he vanished, terrified of his reach. And then Laya disappeared with him. The whispers grew into a theory. Holbrook had abducted her, maybe worse, and fled. 2 bodies. No closure. Just a void that thickened over the years. Now something had shifted. Martinez reappeared with a thick file folder. "Cold case file. Everything we've got." "Let's go," Simon said. "Brief me on the way." They loaded into 2 patrol vehicles, dust trailing behind them as they sped into the vast emptiness beyond town. Martinez opened the file on his lap, reading aloud. "Sheriff Ray Holbrook, 42, Deputy Leia Ortega, 25, October 15, 1985, Night Patrol, left station at 8:47 p.m., never reported back. Their car was found on Highway 67, keys in the ignition, no signs of struggle." Simon's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What about follow-up?" "Extensive searches," Martinez replied. "Desert combed for days. Nothing. FBI got involved, suspected drug cartel connection. Locals said the pair were looking into rumors, missing girls, trafficking. Night they disappeared, they were headed to the Dusty Spur Saloon, smuggler hotspot. The terrain outside their windows began to shift. Desert flats gave way to rugged slopes dotted with pine and twisted juniper. Simon's mind raced ahead. What had Laya seen that night? What had she feared? And what if it hadn't been what everyone thought? He pulled out a phone number long memorized, though he hadn't dialed it in years. "Mrs. Ortega," he said quietly, "this is Detective Reyes. We might have found something. possibly related to your daughter. The voice on the other end cracked, brittle with hope and age. Laya? Is it her? We don't know for sure yet, ma'am, but I wanted you to hear it from me. Officers will escort you. The convoy veered off the paved highway, following the GPS coordinates onto a rocky trail barely visible through the scrub. The deeper they drove into the Chinades, the more the world fell away, leaving behind the noise of town, of doubt, of time. At a remote trailhead, they met a ranger with leathery skin and a heavy expression. Detective Reyes. I'm Bill Hutchins. It's about a quarter-mile hike up, steep, narrow. They grabbed gear and followed him up a winding, overgrown path. The climb was slow, the air thin. At the top, in a forgotten clearing surrounded by pine and silence, they saw it. A weathered outhouse, gray wood, crooked frame, open door. Next to it stood an older couple and a second ranger. The woman's hiking gear suggested wealth. Her expression told of something else, shaken composure. Her husband, fit despite his age, held her protectively. I'm Ruth Donnelly, this is Carl, she said. We were hiking, trying a tougher route. We're stubborn that way. She offered a fragile smile. I needed the bathroom, she continued. Dropped my glasses. Expensive bifocals. Carl tried to retrieve them. That's when he saw. Carl nodded grimly, holding up a keychain flashlight. Engineering habit. Always carry light. What he'd illuminated wasn't old wood or waste. It was a boot, with a foot inside. We ran. Got help, Ruth added. Didn't touch anything else. Simon nodded. He and Dupont slipped on gloves and approached the crumbling structure. It was a basic design, wood box, bench, pit. But inside the darkness, his flashlight caught a shape that made him freeze. The air grew still. There, tangled in desiccated layers of time, was the mummified body of a law enforcement officer. The uniform, faded but recognizable. The badge, the revolver, all real, all intact. It was Sheriff Holbrook. Get forensics, Simon said quietly. We'll need to take this place apart carefully. As the others moved into motion, Simon turned to Hutchins. This trail, how long's it been closed? Since '92, the ranger replied. Rock slides made it too dangerous. No maintenance since then. I'm shocked these folks even found it. Carl looked down at the outhouse, face pale. We saw it on an old topographic map. Didn't think. He didn't need to finish, because something dark had waited here for 16 years. And now, finally, it had been seen. What should have felt like resolution was quickly becoming something far more tangled. The forensics team arrived with quiet urgency. No sirens, just the heavy silence of professionals who understood that whatever lay below demanded reverence. Wearing protective gear, they carefully dismantled the rotting outhouse, plank by plank, every movement deliberate. This wasn't just about evidence. It was about honoring a secret that had waited 16 years to be unearthed. When they finally extracted the body, even the seasoned medical examiner, Dr. Patricia Chen, couldn't hide her astonishment. The anaerobic conditions in the sealed pit, combined with the high-altitude dryness, she said softly, crouching beside the mummified remains. It's textbook preservation. The waste actually composted, creating insulation. Her gloved fingers moved with surgical grace as she dusted off the badge numbers still legible. She read it aloud. Simon's stomach clenched as Martinez confirmed it from the file. It's Holbrook, Sheriff Ray Holbrook. A wave of silence spread across the clearing like a shock wave. The story they'd all believed, every assumption, every whispered theory, it shattered with those words. Near the edge of the clearing, deputies Carr and Morrow stood together, a portrait of raw emotion. Debbie wept openly, and Trish held herself tightly, visibly shaken. Memories they'd locked away for years were crashing down on them. Another vehicle crunched up the trail. Simon turned to see Marisol Ortega step out, her hand clutched in a younger officer's arm. Time had not been kind. She looked smaller than he remembered, weighed down by 16 years of limbo, but her eyes, Leia's eyes, still held fire. Simon met her halfway. "Mrs. Ortega, I need to prepare you. We found a body. But it's not Leia." The war between hope and heartbreak played across her face like a storm. "Not Leia. Then who?" "It appears to be Sheriff Holbrook, likely here since the night they vanished." Her knees buckled. Simon helped her to a boulder nearby. "If that's Ray, then what happened to my baby?" she whispered. "Oh God, what did he do to her?" Simon didn't answer, not yet, but the implications were already shifting the ground beneath them. "This changes everything," he said quietly. "We don't know who put him here, or why. But it might not have been Ray who hurt Leia." "No," Marisol said with sudden, unwavering resolve. "My daughter believed in justice. She loved that badge more than anything. Someone did this to both of them." Simon nodded slowly, then turned to Hutchkins. "How many outhouses like this still exist in the mountains?" The ranger scratched his chin. "Maybe a dozen on abandoned trails, more if you include the old ones still on active routes." "Search them all," Simon ordered. "Every one. Someone knew this place was forgotten. Someone counted on it staying buried." As the scene was catalogued, each piece of evidence delicately bagged, Simon couldn't help noticing Carr and Morrow again, still off to the side, still clinging to each other, still crying. He excused himself from Marisol and approached the deputies. "You two okay?" he asked gently. Debbie wiped her face, mascara smeared. "It's just, even knowing what he did, seeing him like that, nobody deserves that." Trish nodded, her voice thin. It's bringing back everything. Stuff I thought I'd buried." Simon watched them closely. Their grief seemed real, but something about it, the timing, the intensity, left a cold knot in his gut. Still, he said, "Why don't you both head home, take a few days? I'll reach out if we need anything." They nodded quickly and disappeared down the trail with another officer. Back at Marisol's side, Simon reassured her. "We're not giving up on Leia. We're expanding the search." She gave a long, hollow sigh. "Detective, after today, I think I need to prepare myself. 16 years of questions. Maybe it's time to accept I won't get answers." Simon offered his arm. "Let me drive you." As DuPont took over the scene, Simon and Marisol descended the rocky path in silence. Behind them, the crumbling outhouse stood like a tomb, its secrets no longer hidden, but still incomplete. Later, Simone dropped Marisol at her modest home on Presidio's quiet south side. As he pulled away, the sun was long gone, leaving the streets cloaked in twilight stillness. Presidio felt altered, as if the discovery had pressed pause on the heartbeat of the town. Back at the station, under harsh overhead lights, Simone laid the Holbrook-Ortega case file open once more. 16 years of theories, witness statements, search reports, all suddenly inadequate. What if Leia hadn't been a victim? What if she had confronted Holbrook and survived? Could she have done it alone? Doubt crept in like a shadow. Holbrook had been large, trained, armed. Leia would have needed help, someone who knew the terrain, who could keep a secret. He traced his fingers over the timeline. In the summer of 1985, 3 local girls had gone missing, all young, all tied to suspected cartel activity. Holbrook and Ortega had taken it personally, dug deep, maybe too deep. Simon found the report from the Dusty Spur saloon. October 15th. Bartender remembered them. No arguments, no scene. They left around 11:15 p.m. And then, nothing. No security footage, no cell towers. Just fading memories and secondhand stories. No motel logs, no signs of ambush. Just that cold, empty patrol car on Highway 67. He was still piecing it together when Dupont appeared in the doorway. She looked spent. "Other outhouses are clear," she said, easing into a chair. "If there are more bodies, they're hidden somewhere else." Simon leaned back. 16 years, Kara. We've been looking in the wrong place this whole time. Dupont checked her watch. "It's after 8. You should go home. Sleep." He gestured at the files. "I can't. Not yet. Something's missing. I can feel it." She stretched. "Don't stay too late. This case waited 16 years. It can wait one more night." He watched her go, then turned back to the papers, but the lines blurred. His stomach reminded him he hadn't eaten all day. The station was nearly silent now, just the dispatcher and 2 night patrol officers remaining. With a reluctant sigh, Simon finally stood, gathered the evidence bags and notes, and locked everything in his drawer. Then he headed down to the forensics lab, hoping maybe, just maybe, science could uncover what memory and instinct could not. Evidence still littered the forensics lab, bagged fragments of the past now illuminated under sterile lights. Simon Reyes stepped away, his mind overfull and his stomach hollow. "I'm heading out to grab some food," he said, his voice distant. "Call me if anything significant comes up." The October night had cooled, blanketing Presidio in a hush that made every sound feel amplified. Simon sat in his car for a long moment, caught between muscle memory and curiosity. Murphy's Diner was his usual comfort, but his gaze drifted east, toward the Dusty Spur Saloon. The place was still open, and after all these years it still held unanswered questions. The part of him that never stopped digging chose curiosity. He drove through quiet streets, past shuttered storefronts and dim porches. When he pulled into the Dusty Spurs lot, the flickering neon sign bled red and blue onto a line of parked semis and dusty pickups. The bar wasn't packed, but the air inside was dense. History still clung to the walls like old cigarette smoke. Country music droned from a jukebox. The scent of grease and beer was as potent as memory. Trucker types clustered at tables, their maps and logs scattered between bottles. Simon took a stool at the bar. Conversations dulled noticeably. His presence, marked by a badge and posture honed by 2 decades of law enforcement, didn't go unnoticed. The bartender was young, mid-20s maybe, slick hair and jittery eyes. Not the Miguel Vasquez listed in the old files. "What can I get you, officer?" "Detective," Simon corrected. "Bourbon, neat, and a burger if your grill's still hot." "Sure thing," the kid said. Simon watched him pour. "How long you been working here?" 3 years, the bartender said, eyes flicking down. "Why?" "Just wondering. Miguel Vasquez used to work here, back in the 80s. The man's hand stuttered on the glass for half a beat. "Miguel?" "Yeah. He quit maybe 10 years ago. Just walked out one day." "You know where he went?" "No clue. Moved out of his place on Elm, didn't leave a number or nothing. Even skipped his last paycheck." The bourbon slid across the counter. "I'll get that burger started." Simon sipped slowly, letting the burn settle. He scanned the room. Most of the men looked like long-haul drivers, some with sun-scorched skin and tired eyes, the kind who had stories you'd never hear. When the burger arrived, Simon leaned in. "These guys mostly come up from Mexico?" The answer was cautious. "Some do. Some are local. We get produce haulers, factory drivers." But Simon had already noticed the sideways glances, especially from the 4 men at a back table. Their posture changed the moment he entered. Now they watched him like a hawk stalking something unfamiliar in its territory. Finishing his meal, Simon tossed a bill on the bar and walked out, only turning back at the door. The bartender was already whispering to the men in the corner, and they were still watching. He got into his car, hand steady on the wheel, mind racing. The dusty spur was more than a watering hole. It was a front, a passage, a place people passed through and sometimes disappeared from. Whatever ecosystem thrived there, he disrupted it. Under the dome light of his cruiser, Simon flipped open the case file and found Miguel Vasquez's last known address, 59 Cedar Avenue, a short drive from here. He'd follow up tomorrow. Tonight, the adrenaline was beginning to crash. The streets were empty, streetlights buzzing like distant wasps. 2 miles from home, he noticed the headlights, a dark sedan 3 car lengths back. Nothing unusual. Until it matched every turn. Left onto Muscade Street, the sedan followed. Another left, still behind. Simon's pulse rose. He made an unsignaled right onto Desert View. Sudden, sharp. The sedan signaled and turned. His knuckles tightened. He'd learned to trust that instinct. He'd learned it could mean the difference between making it home or not. A Chevron station glowed ahead like a sanctuary. Simon turned in without signaling and pulled up to a pump. He watched the sedan slow, then keep going. Didn't turn in, just crept past. In that moment, Simon caught a glimpse. Hispanic male, hat pulled low, dark blue Chevy Malibu, late 90s. The plate was unreadable in the dark. He waited 5 minutes pretending to check his phone, but the car didn't return. Back on the road, he shook it off. Probably just paranoia from the dusty spur. He turned toward home, finally allowing himself to breathe. Until he didn't. There it was, parked just 3 doors down from his house. Same sedan, no lights, no sound, just waiting. Simon slowed his cruiser in front of the darkened house. It sat in front of 47 Cedar Avenue. He rolled down his window. Crickets, a barking dog. Then the unmistakable sound of breaking glass. In a muffled shout, he reached for the radio. Unit 23 to dispatch. I'm at 47 Cedar. Possible disturbance. Investigating. Copy that, Unit 23. Backup available if needed. He approached the house, hand near his weapon but not drawn. He knocked. Police. Everything okay in there? Footsteps approached. The door cracked open to reveal a man in his 40s. Calm voice, tired eyes. Evening, officer. Everything's fine. Simon didn't buy it. Heard breaking glass, sounded like shouting. The man shrugged. Knocked over my wife's vase. She's upset. It was her mother's. Is she here? I'd like to speak with her. She's in the bathroom. Cleaning up. Little emotional. That vase meant a lot. The man didn't move from the doorway. Simon tried to peer inside. The room behind him was dim. Shapes half-formed in shadows. On the couch, was that someone? A silhouette, still, too still. Who else is here? Simon asked. Just me and my wife. But the figure hadn't moved. Simon's instinct screamed. But he had no legal grounds, no visible harm, just suspicion. He keyed his mic. Dispatch, scene appears stable, clearing. He stepped back. Sorry to disturb. Have a good night. You too, the man said, closing the door. Simon walked to his car, nerves sparking like frayed wires. Once seated, he pulled out his phone and dialed DuPont. She answered groggy. Simon, she rasped. What's wrong? He stared at the darkened house. Sorry to wake you, Kara, but I think I've stumbled into something. Simon's voice was tight with urgency as he relayed everything to DuPont. The tense visit to the dusty spur, the unsettling tale on the drive home, and the ominous encounter on Cedar Avenue. There was someone on the couch, he said, gripping the phone. But if the wife was in the bathroom, then who the hell was that? DuPont was now fully alert. You think this is connected to Holbrook? The timing's too perfect to be coincidence. I go poking around the last place Holbrook was seen and suddenly someone's following me. Then I walk into a house with a fake address. On the same street Miguel Vasquez lived? She didn't argue. Where do you want to meet? Chevron on Palm, 15 minutes. Simon drove in silence, the road unnaturally quiet. He parked in a spot that gave him a full view of the street. The blue Malibu had vanished, but the threat lingered. He could feel it, in his chest like a static charge. 12 minutes later, DuPont's personal vehicle pulled in. She stepped out in jeans and a windbreaker, her badge glinting and her sidearm holstered. She handed him a steaming travel mug. Rough coffee. Something tells me we're not sleeping tonight. Simon accepted it with a quiet nod. Something's happening, Kara. Something big. Then let's tear it open, she said. Where do we start? Cedar Avenue, that house. I need another look. They drove back through Presidio's sleeping streets. It was nearly 11. The town lay in darkness, porch lights flickering like dying fireflies, windows shut tight against the desert cold. The house at 47 Cedars stood quiet, too quiet. The Malibu was gone. Lights off. Not a whisper of movement. Simon frowned. That's odd. Then his eyes tracked along the street, 45, 47, 49, 51, then nothing until 61. No 59? Dupont asked. He killed the engine. Come on. He approached with flashlights. The air was colder now, still as glass. At the dark house, where Simon had done the wellness check, he paused. Look, he whispered. The number 47 had clearly been altered. Beneath the newer paint, faint outlines of older numbers were visible. It was 59. Someone changed it. Upa immediately radioed in a property check. While they waited, they searched the perimeter. The yard was silent, lifeless until Dupont called softly from the side yard. Simon, over here. She crouched near a cracked flower pot. Something small glinted in the dirt. A decorative silver butterfly pin, rhinestones catching their flashlight beams. Dupont picked it up with gloved hands. Debbie Carr. She wears one every day. Her grandmother started a collection for her. Simon's gut turned cold. What would she be doing here? Dupont dialed Debbie's number, straight to voicemail. Same for Trish. The radio crackled. Unit 23, property records confirm that location was 59 Cedar Avenue in 1985, listed to Miguel Vasquez. No new filings since 1991. Current resident under alias 47 Cedar is Juan Delgado. Moved in 3 months ago. Simon's mind connected the dots. 3 months ago. Changed the number, trying to erase a record. He turned to Dupont. We need to check on Trish and Debbie now. Trish lived only 6 blocks away, on Sage Street. As they turned onto the road, they both spotted it. The front door of her house, slightly ajar, rocking with the wind. Dupont unholstered her weapon. That's not good. They approached cautiously. Deputy Moreau? Simon called out. It's Reyes. Are you home? No answer. He pushed the door open. The beam of his flashlight swept across the entryway, where blood stained the tile. Dispatch, we got a possible crime scene, blood visible, requesting backup and forensics. Inside, the house was eerily quiet except for a ticking wall clock. A trail of blood led down the hall, a gruesome breadcrumb path. Room by room, they cleared the house. The living room was intact, kitchen undisturbed. But the hallway told another story. In the bedroom, the mattress was stripped, blankets twisted violently. Blood soaked into the carpet. The sliding door to the backyard stood open, curtains fluttering. But Trish was gone. She fought, Dupont said grimly. Didn't go quietly. Simon holstered his weapon and dialed both deputies again. Voicemail. Backup arrived, crime scene teams moving like shadows through the rooms. Still, no sign of Trish, no word from Debbie. Simon stood in the living room, hands on hips, eyes blazing. It's connected. This morning's discovery wasn't random. We find Holbrook's body, and now the two women who testified against him vanish. Dupont looked up sharply. The bartender. You said he was whispering with a group of truckers. Simon nodded, pointing at me. They knew who I was. They were watching. He snatched his radio. Dispatch, this is Detective Reyes. I need a bolo and roadblock at all exits. No trucks leave Presidio. Repeat, no commercial vehicles leave town. That's a big ask, Dispatch responded. We've got 2 missing officers. Possible trafficking connection. Make it happen. He turned to Dupont. If they're trying to get Debbie and Trish out of town, it's going to be through those trucks. Lupoff's eyes narrowed. Then we go back to the Dusty Spur? The ride back was silent but crackling with urgency. The stakes had changed. The clues were aligning, but they were still playing catch-up, and the clock was ticking. The parking lot at the Dusty Spur was half full. Simon and Dupont stepped out, weapons holstered but ready, adrenaline sharp. Inside, the jukebox was playing Willie Nelson, but the patrons had gone still, every head slowly turning toward the officers. This time, the silence wasn't curiosity. It was fear. Simon pushed the door open, Dupont at his flank. The hunt wasn't over. It was just beginning. Inside the Dusty Spur, a hush had fallen like a storm cloud over the bar. Truckers hunched over their drinks, avoiding eye contact. Near the back exit, a group of men shifted restlessly, glancing toward the front door as if they were preparing to bolt. The young bartender, Carlos, stood behind the counter, his hands trembling slightly as he dried a glass that had already been dry for minutes. Simon approached with purpose, voice sharp and unyielding. We need to talk. Carlos didn't even pretend not to understand. Now? I don't know anything, he said, too fast, too rehearsed. Dupont stepped forward, tone colder. You're not being accused. Yet, but 2 officers are missing, and you were the last person seen speaking to truckers who left in a hurry. The bartender looked around the room, searching for an ally. He found none, only silence and stiff backs. There's an office in the back, he muttered. They followed him through a narrow hallway reeking of stale smoke and secrets. The office was cluttered, suffocating, its single window covered by a warped blind. As Dupont closed the door behind them, Simone leaned against the desk and crossed his arms. What's your name? Carlos. Carlos Mendoza. All right, Carlos, Simon began, voice steady. Here's what we've got. We're investigating a trafficking operation tied to missing girls. We believe law enforcement officers were targeted because of what they knew. If this bar is part of that chain, knowingly or not, you're already in the game. Carlos's lip trembled. I just serve drinks, man. I keep my head down. That's the problem, Dupont said. Not asking questions when crimes are happening around you. That makes you an accessory. But helping us now, that makes you a witness. Carlos hesitated. Sweat beaded on his forehead. You want to be on the right side of this, Simon pressed. Because once we connect you to the trafficking ring, and we will, you'll go down with them, unless you help us stop it. Right now. The young man's resolve cracked. Okay, look. I don't know everything, I swear. But yeah, I get paid extra to keep an eye out. If DEA or cops show up, I let certain people know. Which people? Simon asked. A group. Truckers, but not the usual kind. They come from Ojinaga. They call themselves Los Transportistas. The transporters. Dupont translated quietly. Right, real creative. But they're organized. Same core guys, different trucks. They come through twice a week, sometimes more. And what are they moving? Carlos dropped his eyes. I never asked. You don't ask. But sometimes I saw girls, young girls, not from Mexico, American girls, scared, sedated. I didn't want to get involved. Simon's voice hardened. And you never thought to call us? Call who? Carlos snapped. You think you're the first badge to come through here? I've seen others. Some got quiet real fast. Maybe they got paid. Maybe they disappeared. I didn't know who to trust. Simon's stomach turned. DuPont asked, "Do you keep drugs here?" "No, I swear. No product in the bar. Just signals. Just eyes. That's it." Simon glanced at DuPont. They had their link. Carlos wasn't the villain, but he was their key. "You're coming with us, full statement, and you're going to ID every single one of those drivers." Carlos slumped. "Am I under arrest?" "Depends on how helpful you are," DuPont said. "Right now, you're a witness." 2 officers escorted Carlos out. The few patrons left in the bar stared into their drinks, trying to disappear. Outside, the night exploded into motion. Simon got on the radio. "We need Border Patrol to pull surveillance. We want every truck crossing the Presidio Ojinaga Bridge in the last 4 hours reviewed. Send descriptions to all checkpoints. I also need contact with Mexican authorities. This is international now." DuPont was already on the phone with the border commander. "If they've crossed already, then we follow," Simon said. 15 minutes later, they reached the border. The Presidio Ojinaga International Bridge rose in the desert, lined with bright white lights. Homeland Security agents had already begun checking every outbound truck. One of them, tense and clipboard in hand, met Simon at the checkpoint. "We've got footage. Freightliner semi crossed at 11:02 p.m., 8 minutes before your bolo." Simon gritted his teeth. "That's our truck. Mexican plates, registered to a logistics company in Ojinaga." "What's the process for crossing?" DuPont asked. "We've alerted the FBI and DEA. Mexican federales are waiting. You'll operate under joint pursuit." Within minutes, a convoy formed, FBI black SUVs, DEA trucks, and Mexican federal police vehicles roaring across the bridge in synchronized urgency. The paperwork, normally a bureaucratic nightmare, had been waived under emergency provisions. 2 missing American officers meant rules bent. As they crossed into Ojinaga, Simon stared at the Rio Grande below, a dark, whispering line dividing 2 worlds. He felt it in his bones. This was no longer their turf. On the other side, a veteran officer with sharp eyes and graying hair stepped forward. "Detective Reyes," he said. "I'm Captain Roberto Hernandez. We've tracked the vehicle. It's in Cairevo." DuPont nodded. "Zona Rosa?" "The truck is parked outside La Rosa de Fuego, a cartel-ranked brothel. We've been building a case. But your officers? They've moved up the timeline." The convoy sped through tight Ojinaga streets, headlights flickering across uneven walls and storefronts shuttered for the night. The deeper they drove, the louder the music, the thicker the danger. Zona Rosa lived up to its reputation. Neon signs buzzed above brothels and nightclubs. Half-dressed women called from open doors. Music throbbed, laughter echoed. But under the surface, then they saw it. A garish pink building, loud, lit, and parked in front, the Freightliner. Simon exhaled. This is it. He stepped out of the SUV and looked up at La Rosa de Fuego. Time to bring their people home. A neon rose flickered faintly above the garish entrance of La Rosa de Fuego. The brothel was still busy, music pulsing behind its walls, unaware of the silent force gathering just beyond its doors. Captain Hernandez moved with tactical precision, directing agents in clipped Spanish. "We hit all exits at once. DEA handles drugs, my men process nationals. FBI takes Americans. Reyes, your focus is finding your officers." In a coordinated sweep they moved. Policia Federal! Echoed through the building as flashbangs cracked and doors were breached. Chaos erupted. Men scrambled, women screamed. Tables overturned, bottles shattered. The bar room dissolved into panic. Simon and DuPont pressed forward, clearing rooms with methodical urgency. Behind locked doors they found broken young women, some dazed, others too numb to react. In one room, a DE agent emerged holding bricks of heroin. In another, federal police had 3 men on the floor, faces Simon recognized from the dusty spur. Then DuPont's voice cut through the noise. "Simon, upstairs." He sprinted up a narrow flight of stairs, heart hammering. In a dingy room, he found them. Debbie Carr and Trish Moreau sat huddled on a stained mattress. Still in uniform, faces streaked with tears and grime, they looked like ghosts, fragments of who they once were. "Thank God," Trish whispered. "We thought no one would come." "Get them out," Simon said to DuPont. "Keep them safe." He continued checking rooms. Most were empty now, cleared or abandoned. At the end of the hallway, he opened one last door. There, sitting quietly on the edge of a bed, was a woman in a faded silk robe. Early 40s, her face bore the weight of time and trauma, but Simon knew her instantly. Deputy Leah Ortega. A man was climbing out the window behind her, trying to flee. She didn't move, didn't flinch. Simon stepped into the room slowly. "Señora? Soy el detective Simon Reyes. I speak English," she said flatly. "What are American cops doing here? I've been working your case 16 years. You're Deputy Leah Ortega, aren't you?" She met his eyes. There was recognition, then a quiet shiver of disbelief. "You're too late," she said. 16 years too late." "It's never too late," Simon answered, softly. He radioed DuPont to secure the area, then closed the door behind him. "You were a respected officer. You still deserve dignity." Leah gave a bitter laugh. "Dignity?" She gestured to the room. "I'm the kind of person we used to arrest." "You're a victim," Simon said gently. "What happened to you wasn't your fault. We found Hallbrook this morning, in the mountains. We know you didn't leave willingly." At the name, Leah crumbled. "Ray," she whispered. "You found Ray?" "In an abandoned outhouse. He never left you." Her composure cracked. She buried her face in her hands. "My mother, I thought about her every day, but how can I face her like this? How can I go home?" Simon sat carefully across from her. "You survived. That's what matters." She never stopped hoping, and now she's here. Leah's head lifted. "She's here?" "Waiting to see you, if you're ready." Leah nodded, tears on her cheeks. "Please, I need to see my mom." Medical teams were already on site. As Leah was evaluated, Simon stepped away and made the call that would change everything. "Mrs. Ortega, we found her. We found Leah." Downstairs, agents moved like a tide, arresting, cataloging, organizing chaos into justice. But to Simon, all that blurred behind a single moment. Leah, newly clothed, her eyes uncertain. Marisol Ortega, standing in the doorway of the station, her purse clutched like a lifeline. They saw each other. "Hija," Marisol whispered. "My daughter." Leah stepped forward. "I'm sorry. I'm dirty. I'm broken. I don't deserve." But her mother was already crossing the room, already folding her into arms that had waited 16 years. "No. Nothing was your fault. You're mine. That's all that matters." They held each other sobbing. Officers turned away. Some wiped their eyes. Simon approached quietly. "Messieurs Ortega," he said, "we rescued dozens of women tonight. And with your daughter's help, we'll shut this network down for good." Marisol looked at him, then at Leia. She survived, that's all that matters. We'll get her to the hospital, and we'll protect you both. After that, we'll get you home. Leia clung to her mother as they stepped into the waiting vehicle. She turned back once to Simon. Thank you for not giving up, for seeing me, not just what I became. Simon nodded. You were always Deputy Ortega, a good cop, betrayed by the wrong people, but nothing can change who you are. The patrol car disappeared into the fading night. Behind them, the first light of dawn cracked over the mountains. Ojinaga slept on, unaware that a chapter had closed. But Simon knew. The truth had been buried in the darkest places, in an outhouse, in a brothel, in the lies of those sworn to protect. But truth, like hope, had a way of enduring. And sometimes, just sometimes, the lost could still be found.